everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings, the card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And Teddy is not ready tonight. He had some stuff, so he's doing that. So we're recording a block of shows without Ted, but that doesn't mean he is gone. He is still with us and part of the crew. So Ted, hurry back and make sure the audience is clamoring for you, I'm sure. Right, Grant?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. There's probably other people clamoring for him, too, you know? You know who else would be clamoring for him?
Our patrons.
Our patrons. There is a patron level dedicated to Ted Bannock, the other host of Card Talk. So our patrons are always integral to the show, and we always love having them. So as of right now, we have 24 patrons. And if you want to become a patron and you want to see exactly what becoming a patron can do or what it does, in essence, it helps out us and it helps out the community. So you can become a patron. Join us at patreon.com/cardtalk2018, and the address is right here. And you can join the ranks of people like Dominic, Joseph, Phil, Lou, Sean, David, Robert, Mike, Daniel, Kyle, Jason, Justin, Russ, Matt, Joshua, Jake, James, Vardane, Carl, Niall, Joe, Peter, Edmund, and Alex. Hasn't gotten uncomfortable yet, so that's a good sign, right?
Please, everybody, subscribe for $1 a month. It just has to be 1 month.
I know, right? If only that would happen. Then I would try to do it all in one breath again, and I probably would pass out. And that would mean that I would need the card that we were talking about today, right?
Yes, we are talking about some herbs from the Foundations of Stone.
Yeah, some early herbs, right?
Yes, one of the earliest herbs in the game. It is a zero-cost lore attachment, healing herbs. You attach it to a lore hero, and then action discard healing herbs to an exhaust attached hero to heal all damage on one character.
Yeah. And so before I ask Grant to talk about this card, I wanted to say that, you know, like the guys and I were talking about, you know, cards to bring into the new year, and, you know, we're recording this, and, you know, these cards will be released later, but, you know, here we are. 2020's been quite a ride, and no better way to start 2021 and, you know, thinking about moving forward through this pandemic than, you know, talking about healing, right? And so let's talk about our healing cards in the game. And so we like to every once in a while have a bunch of shows in a row that have one theme. And, you know, I think that also this helps the community, because if we have a whole bunch of shows on a whole bunch of different versions of healing, then, you know, people can get kind of the full picture of what we think about healing. And, you know, I don't want to say that we represent the whole community, but we like to try to represent what the community thinks as a whole. You know, so.
Hey, my viewpoints are my own. I do not take any responsibility for anybody else's thoughts other than my own.
Right. But, you know, like, I think what I mean by that, I know what you're saying, Grant, but, you know, like what I think is that, you know, the community itself thinks that, you know, probably the Warden of Healing is some of the best healing in the game. And, you know, like that's just kind of a widely recognized thing in the community. Not that I agree or you agree or we disagree or whatever, but, you know, like we try to make sure that all sides of the stories are presented on Card Talk. And I think that doing shows that, you know, as groups like this sometimes helps the community, especially with a trait that's been around for so long. You know, there's so many options when it comes to healing, you know, and it comes in all different forms, right? There's attachment healing like this card, and then there's event healing, and then there's character healing through allies and heroes that, you know, like there's just a lot of different options out there. And so I know that healing herbs, talking about this card, and so here's, even before we talk about that, I do want to point out, right? Now, Grant, you as somebody who lives in England, you pronounce it slightly different than Americans. Is that true?
What herbs?
You're going to say herbs, right? And I think that Americans pronounce it herbs, but not that that matters, but I think that that's an interesting delineation there.
Yeah, you miss out the H for herbs.
I know.
It's an American thing.
Yeah, we're so weird over here in America, but so yeah. Enough about all this crazy stuff. Let's talk about it. People tune. This is card talk, not other types of junk talk. So what do you think of healing herbs?
I think from when it was released, it was a nice addition to the healing card pool. In the fact of, and it was attachment healing. I personally didn't really care for it because it was not only discarding an attachment, it was exhausting a hero where you'd rather want your hero up for defense, combat, or questing. So it was, well, do I use it now? Do I use it later? It's great if you've got readying available. If you don't have readying, then it's like, well, when do I use it? What's the best time to use this card?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so this card has made it into my decks that I use for my buddy and I. It's been on hiatus since the pandemic, but we've been working slowly through our saga, the Lord of the Rings saga campaign here. And so this card made it into my saga campaign because I feel like, and it made it into my deck. In my deck, of course, I'm running hobbits, and I'm running the standard hobbits from the Black Riders. I'm running Pippin, Lore Pippin, Tactics Mary, and Sam Gamgee. And so, so obviously this is going to go on Lore Pippin, and I think I kind of accidentally I built that deck years ago, right? And so I just kind of accidentally fell into that's like the place to use it, is on a lore hero that doesn't really need, or isn't going to really do much when you're going to need the healing, I use Lore Pippin more for his ability than I do for his questing. He's my quester anyways in that deck. Or my dedicated quester, of course Sam quests for a bunch, but then he readies and does other things, I don't need to quest with Pippin, and then I can use this, exhaust Pippin, and then heal up any character on the board. And I think that is super flexible for zero. I mean, this is zero cost and turns any lore hero into a healer, I think is great. I think where this is not good is on heroes, like you said, that would need readying, like Treebeard, who you're going to use to defend and quest Barivore, things that that have innate abilities that you're going to be using anyways. So if you have, not that you can put this on Gollum, but if you have or Smeagol, but if you have a low cost lore ally that you're using for something else, like an MOTK,
Yorith?
Well, which is already healing, but yeah, Yorith or MOTK, Robin Smallborough. I think that this is a great card for those particular decks because it's zero cost. I think it fits into a Bond of Friendship deck. I had a brain fart for a second. Like that Bond of Friendship deck where you have, 4 heroes to start with, and so, exhausting a hero to begin, to heal isn't as dangerous as or costly as when you're starting with 3 heroes is great. But all of this to say is that as attachment healing goes, I think that this is a good is a great card. You know, like when we're thinking about attachment healing that is caused because it's an attachment. You know, you're thinking self-preservation, you're thinking Lembas, you're thinking Ethelos, you know, those sorts of cards. You know, I think that this has a place in the card pool, even though it may be a little more, I don't know, like niche-y. I still think it's a good card to have in the card pool. So, what are you thinking about right now?
I think you're right that it is definitely one of the. It's nice to have in the card pool, and it's definitely in the niche category for healing. Um, it's a great healing option to have for the cost of 0. I generally look at this and then I'll look at, say, something like Athelos,
Mm-hmm.
because they both require it to be. The difference between that and Athelos is attached to a Dunedain or healer character, but they
Right. So there
but
is
they
still some limitation to it.
yeah, but they both have discard and exhaust attached character.
Right.
The only difference is Athelas is to heal all damage on a character, but you can also discard a condition attachment from that character.
Right.
Where healing herbs is just heal all damage, but Athelas also costs 1 extra.
Right.
With the limitation of being a healer or a Dunedain, where this is just restricted to a lore character.
Right. And that's the thing. I think that no matter what you're doing, if you're building a deck and you want healing in it, you're going to have to, for the most part, unless you're using Dunedain Remedy, you're going to need to have some sort of lore access, right? Like the ally healing, of course, you need lore access. That doesn't mean that it has to be a lore hero. It could be, it could be Galadriel with Nenya on it or something, or the Song of Wisdom, right?
Yeah.
The Song of Lore is what I call it. But but the point is that if you need healing, which there could be some argument or some discussion about whether a deck really needs healing or not, you need to be running lore. So, and then, this, so because, let me see if I'm going to say this correctly. This more than the other attachments to me is a complete healing option. I don't know, I get the Ethelos. Ethelos, for one, you get to heal on a character, and you still have to exhaust, and but it's more limited because you need the Dunedain. But I still it's a feel bad if you don't actually discard a condition attachment. You know what I'm saying? So it's crazy. So and then there, I guess, what's the other attachment healing? Self-preservation. I think that's better. It's just so expensive. Self-preservation is so expensive, even though it's repeatable. 0 cost healing for exhausting a hero, of course you have to do it at the right time. Maybe, you leave your lore hero up and then you do it in the combat phase during an action window, or you do it during, the refresh phase before, at the end of the turn before, or you do it at the end of combat phase, whatever, so that way you can use it and then you go into the refresh phase ready with your heroes. But I agree, if you want this to be really good, then you want to pair it with readying, and there is some readying in lore. There's leather boots, and then there's Wingfoot, so there's ways to do that. So this and healing herbs and Ethelos are kind of very similar, except this doesn't give you the feel bad if you don't have a condition to discard. So
yeah,
that's why I think it's, in my mind, it's just it may not be a better card than Ethelos, but it's like emotionally feels better, right? Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like,
yeah, I know what you're saying. You don't feel bad about using this card, but you feel bad if you don't have a condition when you use Atlas
right,
because you're like wasting that extra response.
right. And I think that this is very, I think it's flexible. We've been talking about healing cards, and then we say, well, if you're going to heal a character, who are you going to heal, right? Because you're not. Again, I've said this 100 times on these healing episodes. Like, you're not going to put this in a Sylvan deck, I don't think, because you're like, when you build a Sylvan deck that they're going to be squishy and you're going to lose them. So you don't put this in a Sylvan deck necessarily. Like, so, but you could put this in a dwarf deck because there's a lot of dwarves that have a lot of hit points.
Well, you're just looking at healing a character. What about healing heroes? Because
Well, right. I mean, and that's what I was like. A lot of healers heal heroes, but to have that heal a character, is it like?
Yeah, but a lot of cards that heal a hero only heal 1 or 2 damage, whereas this is healing all damage. So it works. I'd say depending on the scenario you're going into, you might want to put this into any deck that needs it. You know what I mean? Depending on the scenario. If you've got a lot of damage coming your way, you might actually want to run this card.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think this card is, I don't even want to say top half, and like, I agree with the community that like the Warden of Healing is a really good healing card, and then Eorith is a really good healing card, and so like, is healing herbs on the order of Eorith and the Warden? No, definitely not, because those are repeatable healings. Like, you can do things with those cards, like they're just better. But is there a place in the card pool for healing herbs somewhere? And my answer to that is yes. There's some healing cards that there's no place in the card pool. Baron's Hospitality, for example. Like, I just don't think that people are doing that. Hero Glorfindel, Lord Glorfindel. Like, there's a place in the card pool for Lord Glorfindel, but it's very, very minor. But I think there's a bigger place in the card pool for healing herbs than those two cards. But am I reaching for healing herbs every time I need healing? No. So,
but are you reaching it enough over other healing cards like Beyond's Hospitality?
Absolutely.
And other like high cost healing? Definitely.
Right. Because of the zero cost. I think that the zero cost makes it like slot into more decks, just in and of itself. Like, I just think that zero healing to heal, all damage on a character, be it a hero or an ally, just makes it good. Just makes it worth it, even if you have to exhaust. I just think it's pretty good.
I agree.
Yeah.
So are we ready to ring this?
Well, we still have to talk about one more thing. What do we always talk about here at the end of the episode?
Damage mitigation or over
damage. No. That you can tune into other episodes about that. I'm talking about the artwork.
True enough.
I mean, that's a conversation that's always going to be different on all the shows, right? So,
yes.
So, what do you think of the artwork in this?
I like the artwork in this card. I've said it about most of the artwork that we've discussed lately, but this artwork, you can see the thought that's went behind this. You've got a jar of herbs, and it's like you're sitting at an a apothecary station,
right,
ready to just sprinkle some of these herbs on an open wound.
Right. I'm curious what the setting is, because it doesn't seem fancy or light enough to be, in Rivendell, which is kind of where I think. I wonder if this is like the Houses of Healing in Gondor, where Eorith and the Warden come from.
Well, that's where I would put it, because I think of just from a purely fantasy setting. If it was set in Rivendell, I'd expect it to be more magical, so to speak.
Yeah, it would have like an air of magic about it, like,
Yeah.
and I think that there's doesn't the Lord of the Rings book talk about the healers having books that they read to help heal, and there's a book right in there on the right hand side, with some, like, and then there's that's a mortar and pestle up there, like you said, herbs going around. If if this was a more adult podcast, I almost would think that this is a show on weed. Like there's there's so much green herbs in this that it makes me wonder. But it's definitely interesting. And I like I wonder what the scroll is that's in the front. I wonder if that's like the recipe, that they're using to follow in order to make the concoction or something.
It's highly possible. That's what I would have said anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's pretty cool. It's I like the art. And again, I think it fits the LOTR LCG like thing. I think it's, it's not cartoony. It's, I guess it's called photorealistic, or it's, it just seems to be like real cool, real nice. Fits into the game pretty well. So, okay. Now, what do you think?
I think it's time to rank.
Okay, we're going to ring this guy. We're not going to talk about damage mitigation versus...
No. They can tune in to other shows for that.
Yeah. Okay, so for anybody who is new to the show or has forgotten, we have a highly scientific arbitrary system where we rank a card on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the best card in the game. It's the one card to rule them all. And 10 is the card that we throw back into the fiery chasm from whence it was made. And so that's not a very good card at all. So
Brock Iron Fist.
Brock Iron Fist.
Bjorn's Hospitality.
Bjorn's Hospitality.
Sorry, I had something stuck in my throat there.
Yeah. So Grant, where do you want to put healing herbs? I'll let you go first, buddy.
I'm going to put healing herbs at a 4. It's a good card. Do I reach for it every time? No. Do I reach for it more often than some of the others? Yes.
Yeah, you know what? When I think about ranking this card, I think that this is mid-tier healing. Like it's a one-off. It's attachment healing, which is fine, and I think it's on the order of Ethelos. But I think attachment healing in and of itself is not necessarily the best way to attach, unless again you're going to talk about the new Master card, which is bonkers good, and then well preserved, that is, or whether you're going to talk about the Song of Healing, which is great in certain decks, but I think that attachment healing is fine, and I think that this card fills a niche and is really good, and that 0 cost is like, it's just really favorable in my head. So I'm not gonna give it a 4, but I'm definitely gonna put it middle of the road at 5, because it's better than some of the cards that we've talked about, but it's also not as good as some of the real staples of healing in the game. So there you have it, everybody. That's our show on healing herbs, and we'll see you again on another episode of Card Talk. Have a great day, everybody. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube, where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username Card Talk 2018. Or you can search the RSS feed, cardtalk2018.libsyn.org, for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at Card Talk 2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself, or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.